Well, I don't see her as a celebrity. I see her as my daughter, who is in desperate need for care, more toward psychological care, care for being exploited, a child who needs a loving home, who needs to understand what as a family is all about. I've tried when Barbara gave birth to Danielle, things weren't going to work out. I knew they weren't going to work out. I did know when she got pregnant, and it wasn't a planned event. I don't want to say using.
This wasn't planned.
Right, wasn't planned. And but what I realized at that time was, oh geez, now I have a responsibility. Me being adopted, I know what it's like, not knowing who your parents are. And I wanted to give Danielle at least a proper upbringing, even though if it might come from a single parent home, you know, or from not living together with the same parent. I was adopted to great parents. Family values are extremely important in our family. We do so many things together, and I wanted Danielle to be part of my family and extended family and friends. So when I knew it wasn't going right, I discussed it with my family, and we knew, knowing Barbara's past, of her negative reactions towards me, we went to go seek a counsel attorney to set up visitations and child supports, knowing that she would resist me being able to see her. We were dating at the time, and I remember her mother approaching me and saying that no matter what happens, make sure you take care of my granddaughter, your child. And I promised her that I would do everything I possibly could to do that. I was working at the mall in law enforcement in Wellington, and I happened to get involved in arresting some of her friends. And when her friends noticed my name tag, they're like, "Oh my God, you're Daniel's father." And I said, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh my, she's been trying to reach you all these years." And I said, "Well, I'm right here, and here's my phone number." So I got a call from Danielle in the next couple of days, and she started yelling and screaming at me, saying how I abandoned her, how I left her. My mother showed me all the court documents, how you had nothing to do with me. My grandfather told me you left my life. And she went on and started yelling and screaming. Not knowing that Barbara was in the background, but then she had a friend telling her, "Danielle, stop yelling at him, he's your father." So she sort of came to her senses. And then her mom got on the phone, and then I said, you know, we kind of came to a conclusion, maybe it's time for me to see her. And I said, "Barbara, this isn't like, let's do this the right way. I don't just walk into somebody's life, just walk into my life without going to a third party through a therapist or counseling. You know, I have a good plan at my place of employment, and I wanted to do it that way." And Barbara said, "Absolutely not." She didn't want Danielle to be exposed to that. She didn't need it. So me being desperate and wanting to see my child, I agreed to meet her at the first event was at the Boynton Beach Mall. I met her right before her birthday, and I got her a card. She was shopping. She wanted these pair of Nike sneakers, and so I purchased the Nike sneakers for her, and I went to go get a card. And I was so nervous when I was writing it. I mean, I know her birthday, but I was so nervous I put it the day after. So, and Barbara said something to me.
Any of our kids' birthdays.
So I put it the day after. I do know that. So I saw her, and she sat, we had something to eat, and Barbara was there. We sat at a table, and I'm just looking at this girl, and I'm like, wow, I was like, wow, she's beautiful. I mean, she's a very beautiful girl, and she was a little reserved, and she had the little, attitude. I think one of the comments she kept talking about was, referring to me as being a cop. She didn't like being around police officers, and now I know why. But she kind of was referring to me, oh, you're a troll, you're the police, you're this. I'm like, no, I'm your father. And let's forget about that stuff. And we spoke, and it wasn't like, it was very emotional. I mean, it really hit hard knowing that there's a child out there who didn't know who her father was, and all the things that I wanted to do for her, but I wasn't able to do it. So the next time we met, a couple days later, Barbara allowed me to meet Danielle's best friend for lunch. And I took him over to a restaurant. We had lunch. Danielle's best friend, they went out together, and I was looking at these two girls, and they were exactly alike. The hair, the nails, the makeup, their clothes, what their, everything. I was like, wow, they mimic each other. So that's why they call themselves sisters. But what was kind of strange was her friend at the time was 16 years old. She's 17 now. And they were telling me how that she was her provider,
Yeah, she was her caregiver.
She was her caregiver. She did everything for Danielle.
She raised her.
She helped raise her.
Like a big sister with an absent parent, in a sense.
Right. And I could tell you why. Basically, we were able to find out that a lot of times through these years, Barbara has just dropped Danielle off at family places in New York and left her. Barbara's dropped her off at this girl's house just for a few hours, and the father said, Barbara, you can't leave her here the whole weekend, and she wouldn't come back. She'd drop her off Friday afternoon, say, I'm going out for 3 hours, wouldn't pick her up till Sunday night. So Barbara would just keep dumping her off at different locations because she couldn't deal with her or handle her anymore.
It's unfortunate because we've started to find out a lot of things that we wish we could have been able to know beforehand.
Actually, I did a lot. We did back and forth legal battles, which cost a lot of money. I actually had to sell some jewelry, even a Rolex watch, to pay for legal fees. I was loaned some money from my parents, which I had to pay them back. Maxed out some credit cards. I mean, it was very expensive to fight this, and I offered to Barbara. I said, "Look, one of the things was, why are we fighting in court when all this money could go back to Danielle to help her and make her a good life?" But she just refused. But it came to a point that Barbara was so toxic for my family, my wife, my children. Barbara has a history of and it's documented, of all of her past boyfriends, of accusing them of battery, domestic violence, sexual battery towards Danielle at a young age of 4 to 5 years old. So I thought for my career and the safety of my family that it was time that we said, hey, let's just let Barbara raise Danielle, but I would always pay child support, $1,100 a month. I'd always pay child support. And we thought that if Barbara would just raise Danielle, and even the court said I could have visitation. We even set up some supervised visitation, and she didn't show up.
Yeah.
Okay? So, go ahead.
We had a lot of struggles, and again, I've been with Ira since pretty much the very beginning of all of this. When we first got married, I was ready to be a mom. I grew up in a home with divorced parents, so I knew what it was like to have that relationship. So I was actually ready to be a stepmom. So I kind of came into all of this thinking, hey, great, I'm gonna get a chance to, help him raise his daughter. And then it just very quickly turned into, oh my gosh, what is this? What are we going through and what's happening? And prior to us having children, there was one point that, just to kind of understand a little bit in the beginning, just how we started off with frustrations and the challenges, was that he was changing jobs. And when you change jobs, usually for 90 days, you don't have health insurance. The job that I had provided for non-spousal insurance and also allowed that I could put his daughter on our insurance. Even though we weren't married, it was covered. We did that, and right away Barbara started contacting my place of employment and literally yelling and screaming at the HR director saying, why are you letting her do that? That's my daughter, it's not her daughter. So it was like, from the beginning, we were trying to do the right thing and help, and she resisted. And I ended up having a miscarriage in 2004, the end of 2004. Took a long time to get pregnant again. Seems like a long time, about a year. And all through that time, it was constant of phone calls from Barbara, letters from Barbara, him trying to see Danielle, Barbara not showing up, not allowing him, complaining, just things that were all back and forth. And it finally came to it during that time too. I was like, listen, I'm pregnant. I lost our first baby. Like, I need to be able to be healthy and have a healthy pregnancy. So can we just stop this, please? And we talked about it and realized, what, I've got the health of myself and our baby to try and make sure we can get through this. So we tried that. It calmed down for a little bit, but what we realized during that too was, maybe if we stop fighting Barbara and stop putting so much pressure, or what she felt like was pressure, which really for us it was just like trying to make sure that we could be a part of this little girl's life and have her be with her father. But it was like, okay, what's going to be better for Danielle now? Should we stop? Should we take a breather, wait till she gets a little bit older, let Barbara calm down, let her mom maybe be a mom. Maybe she'll focus on being a mom and not being filled with so much anger. And a lot of it I feel guilty for now with that too, now that I see what's happened, because we see all of these things, and again you think about it and you go, oh wow, okay, maybe she'll focus on her daughter and she'll be a mom and focus on that. And we look at that and it's like, gosh, maybe if we didn't stop then, and maybe if we did keep fighting, maybe it wouldn't have gotten to this point. But so I have a lot of guilt too for having felt like that. And also now being a mom and having kids and seeing what's happening, like working in the juvenile justice system, I just can't imagine what Danielle's gone through and how she feels. I'm sorry. It's hard because, just like with your question, people think, okay, well, Ira's never tried. He's never been a part of her life. He hasn't wanted to be. And that's so not true. It's been a fight. And again, at some point, for everybody's well-being, you stop and you go, okay, maybe the best thing's to stop. We did have kids then too, and they were young. We all had so much, and you think maybe that's not what you're trying to do isn't working, and it makes things get worse, and maybe you just need to put on the brakes and try and look at a different route.
She has complained to my place of employment, numerous complaints to internal affairs, wrote letters all the way up to the sheriff. She's called the IRS.
She's called Animal Care and Control.
Animal Care and Control on us. That we're illegally breeding dogs. She's harassed my family, my parents, my biological parents. She has gone above and beyond to torment us. Just wouldn't leave us alone. And I've tried to do the right things over and over and over again. And I was getting tired of defending myself, trying to do the right thing, because it always cast me in a false light. It was over and over and over again with her. I had to defend myself, to work. I had to defend myself to family. I had to defend myself to friends at times. Or like, why does this lady keep saying all this stuff about you?
And it's like, at what point is it that you can just be a parent? At what point is it that you can just have family? Why do you have to fight? Why do you have to resist? Why do you have to push somebody away? Because it's really what it was. It wasn't that she wanted to work with us on that. we wanted Danielle to be a part of our family. We always did. And
we've sent her,
I mean, I don't know.
we sent president's cards, which I don't think she got all of them. My parents set up a trust fund for her. Barbara sent back saying, we don't want this. Save it for Stephanie and the kids, which I'm trying to find you a copy of it.
Yeah, save it for Stephanie and Ira when they have their 10 children or something like that. It wasn't.
She's threatened to kill my wife, which a police report was done in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So this woman just wouldn't leave us alone. And when is it to a time that you have to say, hey, you know, she is so toxic and so abrasive that I have a family, I have a career. I need to be able to supply for them and to watch out for the best interests of them. So it was an ongoing battle. And Barbara played that role that she's always the victim. She's always the victim, you know, I'm the survivor of, you know, the breast cancer survivor. All the complaints would start off about that. All about Barbara. It was all about Barbara. But again, we've tried. I really, really tried.
And I think now, again, when we came to a year ago, and thank God, you know, one of Danielle's friends saw his name tag and said, hey, Danielle's trying to reach you. Like, are you her father? This is when we started finding things out. And this is when, again, you stop, you second guess, you go, God, you know, could we have done something differently before getting to this point? But at least then at that point, that's when we started offering things again and saying, okay. And also you look at it too and you think, okay, maybe Danielle's a little bit older now, so she'll understand more herself too, and understand, you know, no, he's not this evil, bad person, and you know, you do have a family that's here.
Well, it's not easy giving up a child. It's not easy for any parent to lose a child. But I had to realize that every action would get a negative reaction from Barbara. And I couldn't focus my whole life because she wasn't working. She didn't have a family. You know, she had Danielle, but she didn't have a family to raise. She didn't have a job, or she allegedly didn't have a job. And
I think she did then.
Or she might have, right, for a little bit. But the constant, it hurt. Believe me, it did hurt. It did hurt for a while. Knowing that there's a child so close, but so far away, because she's always been in Boynton Beach. I know she sent to New York for a year plus when she dropped her off at a family's home without being even known. Right, she left
in the beginning and went up to New York. She stayed with an aunt up there in the beginning as well. Well, I don't remember what year that was. It was somewhere around, because it was before she bought her house. So maybe somewhere around 2005 or so. Because
every time that I tried to do something to better Danielle, to allow her to be part of my life, the reaction or the actions of Barbara were so horrific that I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just so frustrating. You have a person that just keeps attacking you and attacking and attacking. And I truly cared for her tremendously. And I still do care for her tremendously. I've always cared for Danielle. Like I swore to her mother that I would take care of her and make sure that she gets a proper home and a good life. There's not one day in my life that I've not stopped thinking about Danielle, knowing that I've had a child, knowing that I wasn't able to raise her, wasn't able to change her diapers, wasn't able to feed her, wasn't able to watch her teeth come in, you know, not being able to watch her walk the first walk or say dada. You know, there's so many things that I've missed with this young girl, my daughter Danielle, that is just taking a toll on me that will scar me forever, literally. I mean, these are some things at this age now, and seeing the way she is, I didn't get to see those young years of a young child growing up. When we saw that Danielle was in such bad shape, and speaking to one of Barbara's ex-boyfriends, and then people were starting to call me and reach out to me, before her notoriety, I'm not going to call it.
Before she even went to Dr. Phil. Before we knew about anything with Dr. Phil.
I tried to get her on my health insurance because it wasn't open enrollment. Barbara refused to do that because we wanted to send her to a program out of state. Barbara refused that. When open enrollment came through and I got her on the insurance, Barbara even turned down the health insurance. The only thing Barbara wanted for my insurance at that time, because Danielle needed braces, cosmetic issues,
Yep, that was her
not
focus.
mental health, not health care, not sending her away. All she wanted to do to use my insurance, which she ultimately turned down, was for Danielle to get braces. So when he says, when she became famous, or I don't want to say famous, you could redact that. She's not famous. She's a victim of exploitation. She's being exploited as a child.
And see here, with us too, what we want to be able to do is actually have Danielle be a kid. She's not a kid, and from what we've started to learn and seen, we question whether or not she's ever actually really been able to be a kid. And if you want to talk about somebody who is trying to break in money on this, that's her mother. Because we're not the ones that are out there trying to promote her on social media. We're not the ones that are looking at this going, okay, hey, it's awesome to parade her around in a mall, just like they did yesterday out in LA, prancing her around a mall, trying to get it so that it looked like she had some kind of followers and was some type of celebrity out in Beverly Hills. They're the ones that she now has this management team. Who put together a management team for her? Her mother did. Why? Because she's trying to cash in on what she thinks her daughter's gonna get. And it's not healthy. If you see what Danielle is doing on social media, the clothes that they have her wearing, the things that they have her saying.
She's talking about oral sex. She's talking about
STDs.
STDs.
STDs. Just the other day, I can show you a video that's on Instagram that she talked about her girlfriend, and if her girlfriend breaks up with her, that she'll kill herself.
And she puts her fingers to her head and she wants to kill herself.
And that's in front of her bodyguard. Her mother's in a bedroom. I don't know if her agent's there too, but her bodyguard is with her, and they all start laughing, and then there's some inappropriate language back and forth.
Between her bodyguard and her talking about certain things, which is totally unprofessional, and for a 13-year-old to be involved in a conversation with an adult like that. This is all, she posts this on Instagram. This is nothing.
I'll show you.
This is nothing that's hidden. She posts all this stuff.
And again, it's, for us, it's getting Danielle into a family that's going to be healthy for her and being able to be a kid, not being exploited and not being made to make money. Because, you see these reports and you see them saying these types of things. First of all, I can't imagine that any of it's true. But even if it was true, awesome, put that money in a trust for her. When she's 18, 21, whatever's appropriate, then she'll have that money to go to school, get a good education. But you know what? First of all, the legal fees that we've got going on right now are ridiculously expensive. So if anyone were to think that, we're trying to do anything to get money, there's just nowhere near that. He pays $1,100 a month in child support and has been paying child support all along. The goal is what's going to be right for Danielle as a young girl. My feeling from seeing kids in the juvenile justice system is what she had going on beforehand with the challenges in her life and the problems that she was experiencing and what she was facing with DJJ, then pulling her out of Florida, putting her in Hollywood with people, strangers, a management team, folks she doesn't know, and then putting her all on social media to do this. That's not something that's going to help her. And that's not something that's going to make it so that she's going to get what she needs, and that she's going to be a kid, and that she's going to be able to grow up and have a productive life.
And she flew out there by herself for 6 days with this management team, leaving her, Barbara, at home. Who sends their 13-year-old child to LA? To LA.
With no family.
It's appalling. The child doesn't go to school. Okay, that's being addressed with the school board. Apparently, the school board has to be, in the state of Florida, has to be the complainant. I guess the school chancellor or designee puts it to the courts.
We've talked, we shouldn't get into too much, I think, on some of those things. We've got to be careful, but we've made sure the right people that are supposed to know things regarding her education are aware of it. Because there's only so much that we and Ira as a father can actually do.
I sit here and I tell you the story, and I just regurgitate so many years of negativity, of toxicity, of horrible stuff. What we've both been exposed to. And I want to sit and I want to tell you these things, and you're trying to ask specific dates, and every time that you ask her a question, something else negative triggers up of what she's done to us, and how she's made me be such this horrible person in this world, that I'm such a bad father figure for this child, which is not true. So
I think there's been a lot of, like, over the years, there's been some kind of walls of his own that he's put up on himself to try and block from the pain, you know, because it does happen. When it happens, it's really hard. And every time, even if they've just gone to court for a modification, I mean, after court, he's so upset. You know, you can just see how much it hurts. It's this tough cop exterior that's there. Mm-hmm. He cries. He does. I mean, you know, I think too, you see, or I see anyways, more so how he appreciates our boys, because, you know, he wasn't able to do those things with Danielle and be with her. He's not, it's always difficult to, it's like the lead up to court and then the after of court. It's just so hard. It's like the tension is there, because you know before going into court that we're going to have to see Barbara, and we're going to have to hear difficult things come out of what she's saying that's not true. And then afterwards, the feeling of, it's like you get kicked in the gut. You know what I mean? Like,
because a lot of times she represented herself, so she just went on and on and on. Sometimes they told her to be quiet, but I had certain attorneys at the time didn't want to address all of her nonsense, and just went the bottom line about, oh, it's just about numbers, and it's just about this and that, and you know, you can't. And I wanted it to be addressed. I want this stuff to be addressed in the courts. And every time I walked out of court, the majority of the time, I've just felt like it's a losing battle.
I feel now that we have Mr. Shalhoub, I feel like we actually have an attorney who is looking out for the best right of a family with this, versus just money and numbers. Because this is all, even though I grew up in a divorced household, this has all been new for me to learn and see. Mm-hmm. And I would do things so different now if I knew what I know now with it, in terms of attorneys and in terms of the courts. But what's really sad with this is I feel, and I don't know if it's true, but I feel like throughout the years, what we've experienced is it's only been about black and white, what's on a piece of paper, and money. It's not been about people. It's not been about that there's a family.
Best interests of a child, or the best interests of a family.
Right. It's
just another number that goes through the system, you know, and it just felt horrible. It really did.
And
even,
I think,
you know, even in court, that I couldn't express what was right. I went to go speak to the magistrate once, and I had a list of some of the things I wanted to expel, and she told me, no, it's irrelevant. And to this day, I still have those notes that I wanted to address the courts about certain things.
And I think we got maybe some bad legal advice over the years too. I do. But when you go into court so many times and you pay so much for legal fees, plus then you also have child support, and then you have a mother who doesn't want to try and, you know, actually have a family and have people be involved with her daughter. Again, I think it's like another piece that throws into it that's just really, really hard. And how do you get through that? It's like all of these years of doing it, and every time you want to try and do something. I mean, what mother is going to get angry with her father because he's gone and sent a birthday present? You know, so it was like you were damned if you do and you were damned if you don't. Because if you did something, then we get a repercussion for it. And then if we didn't do something, or he didn't do something, then it was, oh, well, you didn't do this.
You know, in life, you always think that you always remember the good, mm-hmm. you know, in life. But there's been so much bad that it's kind of overtaking my good that I want to tell you, you know, because it still hurts. It hurts because I've always tried to do the right thing. I've always tried to be a father. I've always tried to be a husband. I've always tried to be part of other people's lives. My whole career, all I did was serve other people, between being a law enforcement, a firefighter, a paramedic, even teaching tennis. Everything that I do in my life is to give back to others.
And it's hard on our family. And, you know, you kind of asked a little bit before about our kids. We ended up telling them about Danielle. And again, it was like, oh my God, we've got to tell them that they have a sister this way, you know, versus how we had really hoped that we'd be able to talk with them about it. And we did that because Ira's name, you know, was now out there. We were worried that they were going to be starting to get asked from people about it, about what was happening. And so we took them to a therapist, a child therapist, to talk with them about, okay, hey, you know, let's do it the right way and do it in a way that we were able to have their questions answered properly and without our emotions kind of associated with it. But, you know, now our kids are getting teased at school. They're getting made fun of. Because people now realize that, or they question whether or not Danielle is their sister. And so we've said to them, you know, if you want to talk about it, you can. If you don't, then, you know, just tell people you don't want to talk about it. But it's because other kids are seeing Danielle's behavior and basically how she's being exploited on social media. And there's a lot of kids that think it's wrong. And so then they're saying to our kids, well, you know, why is she doing this? Or is this your sister? Or they're saying the phrase to our boys. And, you know, they're getting very upset with it too. But the reason I went off on a tangent there. But it ties into, though, again, with our kids too, and the questioning of it. And, you know, why is it that you don't say in your bio that you have a daughter? Well, because how do we talk about that to people?
You know, one of the big things to talk about my boys, Danielle's always wanted to meet my boys, her brothers. I have brothers. Mm-hmm. And Barbara wanted me to introduce the boys to her last March. And I said, Barbara, it'll happen, but they need to go. I wanted to do it through a social worker or a psychologist, because you can't just tell these two boys, 9-11, or they were actually 8 and 10 at the time, hey, here's your sister. They don't even know anything about really like how kids are made yet. Yeah, and talk about that. So
we were starting to find out what was happening in Danielle's life, and then the fear is, okay, we got to focus on getting her the help that she needs first, and getting her squared away before bringing our boys into that, because, you know, you don't want them to think that this is okay to be like this, but then also we didn't know what was going to happen with Danielle and the history with her mother.
You know, because they were watching her on social media before they knew who it was. And then my one son said, hey, Isaac said, hey, Daddy, I want to meet her. I said, why? Because I'm like, this is my daughter, your sister. You want to meet her? And he goes, because I want to help her, because there's good in everyone. That's what he said to me. Isaac said to me. So, and I almost like broke down crying, like, wow, you don't even know this girl as your sister, and you're saying that. And then
this was before they knew
that
Danielle
that was Danielle. And then when we brought them and we told them, they were actually very excited. Mm-hmm. Then, you know, some questions started rolling in, you know, like, well, how did Daddy have another child, and who this was, and all that other kind of stuff. So, but now they still want to meet her, and they actually got to speak to her. When she was in LA, she called me twice. Without her mom, she called me twice.
Once her mom got there,
right? The first one, her management team told her to call me to knock off all the negative publicity on the articles, because that one article that came out, I guess.
When you filed the motion.
When I filed the motion.
Motion went in.
Right, it made her look bad, and her management team wanted to call me, and she started calling at me, saying, you know, cursing at me, you know, I don't want to be in your life, I don't want you to be my father, and all this kind of stuff. And she goes on these roller coasters, from yelling and screaming to being a little bit calm, and then to just regurgitate all the stuff that how I left her and didn't want to be part of her life. Our ultimate goal is this. Danielle needs to go to a program. If it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, my insurance is very rich. I'm not saying money-wise, but very rich with inpatient care for mental health, for substance abuse, for all this stuff. I want to send her there and slowly but surely incorporate my wife, my children, and myself into her life. And when she gets better, because I truly think that she can get better because she did so well at the Turnabout Ranch, then she has an opportunity to be a child, and she could live in our home. You know, we have a room upstairs. We can make her room. The boys would be ecstatic for that. So
we want to do it right, because
Right.
if we don't do it right, then it's not going to work, and who's going to suffer for it is Danielle.
All right.
You know what I mean? Like, if we don't, what she's gone through and experienced, not even just to this point of where her relationship is with Ira, but now this last year, the issues where she's had trouble with the law. She went on Dr. Phil, she got this notoriety, then she was shipped out to LA, and now she's doing this. There's so much that's happened that I think she needs to figure out who she is. And, you know, I don't know that anybody right away can help her with that, but doing it right. I mean, but ideally, if we had our way and we could wave a magic wand, we would be a normal family that's here, and there would be no craziness, no social media, no LA trips, and Danielle would be in our house with us and our boys.
If and when she becomes better, and I really do believe that she will become a little girl again, you know, she could turn around and do so much positive in her life and share this story on how she's changed with other kids. She could share with families, talk about parental alienation, talking about bullying, talking about drugs, talking about underage sex, talking about stealing cars. You know, she stole a car one day to come see me. That's how desperate she was. Her best friend told me she stole a car one day just to try to find me.
We worried that her mom would say negative things about Ira, but maybe just not to the extent that we've now found out has happened. And I think really, like, there's another video that's on social media, which if you wanted it to be shared with you, it could be. And her mom's in the back, and it's recent. It was one of their trips out to LA, and her mom's in the background talking to her, basically prompting her on how to answer things about Ira and I. And when you hear, first of all, what she's saying to her isn't true, but then you're hearing that and you're going, oh my gosh. I mean, again, it's just all these stories that are not true that her mom has said to her over the years that she's grown up believing. So now she has this anger over things that aren't true and that she doesn't know about. But that's why, again, going back to your question about, you know, what would we like to see happen? Because there's been all of these inaccuracies that she's been told, we've got to be able to, in a right way, tell her what's true. And then the other part of it...
She's going to get hurt again when she
right.
realizes
and how do you do that? Because
she's really going to get hurt again, knowing that...
Her mom lied.
Her mom lied to her all these years about...
And how do you do that to a kid?
Right, so she has a lot of issues. That's why all this stuff with exploiting her and sending out, if all these kids who are following her understood what this child has gone through, my daughter Danielle, between the drugs, between the sex, between the stealing, between the domestic abuse, between smoking. I mean, it is just...
show you one
it
thing.
Is just...
And if you want to see a video.
How could you publicize and think this is a role model? And I just want to tell you one other thing real quick, is that parents have asked me, they said, Ira, please stop your daughter because other kids are acting the way she is, thinking that it's acceptable behavior, that they'll get rewarded the same way Danielle is getting rewarded.
This, we had to do this through a public records request, but these are the police reports that only public records request you can get because a lot gets redacted. These are all the times that just the Boynton Beach Sheriff's Office, or the Boynton Beach Police Department went to their home. This stack.
It's horrible reading the stuff of the abuse, of the stealing. She's crying out for help. She's doing these things for attention, and she's not getting the attention from the right people. I mean, the thing about her mother chasing her around, her mother beating her, the drugs, the stealing of the cars, the credit card fraud, I'm saying, so wow, who is parenting this child? The biggest thing is to make sure that Dana becomes part of our life, and I have decision-making on her future. I know that Barbara doesn't want that. I know her management team doesn't want that, but that's what we want to make sure that Daniel gets proper care and gets removed from her toxic environment right now.
Unfortunately, we have to talk now, but this isn't normally what happens. When you have a family situation and you're, dealing with the family's lives and you're dealing with young kids, you don't throw it out there in the public for everyone. It's not something that's talked about and that's gone over. And we've been contacted by TMZ. Ira's been contacted also by several other places to do interviews. to provide,
FaceTime, interviews,
Yeah.
fly me out to do shows.
and that's not what we've wanted to do, because that's not really what's going to help the situation, and that's not what's going to be best for Danielle. But again, I think at this point things have gone so high, and in terms of it being out there now, that we've got to say something. And I think, another part of it too, I don't know if you've thought about this, but my hope with some of this too is that maybe Danielle will see it. I don't know if they're going to filter that from her and she won't be able to, but maybe, although this wouldn't be ideal, maybe this will be a way that she'll be able to hear some of the truth of the things that have happened.
Danielle needs to know that she has a father who cares about her. She has an extended family, a close family, 2 brothers, grandparents, cousins, aunts and uncles, a whole set of friends that want her to be part of our life, to give her a life, to know what it's like to be a child, part of our family, not the craziness that she's going through. So I want her to understand. She needs to know that I love her. She needs to know that my wife loves her and cares for her. She needs to know that my parents love her. She needs to know that her brothers want to learn to know who she is and to love her.